Good morning. My name's Tom Fries, your host. I'll be with you here for the next hour. Today, my guest returning to the broadcast is Nicholas Arthur of Cross the Border. And it's my pleasure to welcome Nicholas this morning, and thanks to my listeners for taking the time in your busy day to join the broadcast. I'm sure you'll find the discussion interesting. Brother Nicholas, are you with me this morning?
Can you hear me, Tom?
Yes, I hear you loud and clear.
Then I'm with you.
You are indeed.
Okay. Well, perhaps you have some questions, because I kind of ran in here with nothing. I had a little memory of last week, so
okay.
Hopefully we can make something happen here.
Well, we were talking about your your traveling documents, and the fact that since you don't have a Social Security card, and the government illegally requires you to do business with an ungodly system like Social Security, that you're ineligible to have a driver's license.
I'm ineligible for benefits, Tom, and I have to correct you. They don't illegally force me. They try to coerce me. That, of course, now that's true, but It is all voluntary. And here's how you know if something's voluntary. If you have to sign a document to participate, then it's voluntary.
Okay.
Because you have to give them your signature. If it's not voluntary, then you don't have to sign anything.
How does once one realizes the error of volunteering under the Social Security Administration, how does one divorce himself from that agreement? How does one repent of that sin?
Well, the first thing you do is you have to realize that what you're doing is wrong, and that's where many people have a problem. Because, Tom, the law was nailed to the cross. So all of that nonsense in my document about God's law is nonsense to most people. Most people have the attitude that God wants them to be happy. Now, that's probably true, that God does want us all to be happy. But they believe that God places their happiness above everything else, above His law even. Mm-hmm. And many people have the mistaken idea that they don't have to keep God's law because that would not make them happy, and that God understands why they can't keep His law, because that would make them unhappy. For instance, many people practice birth control, regardless of the fact that, of course, God's law was nailed to the cross, and the very first positive command that He gave in the Scripture was to be fruitful and multiply. At least chronologically speaking, in terms of the Bible, it was the first positive command that He gave. Okay. But because God wants us to be happy, that they don't have to obey that. And then you could just add commandment after. I mean, that's how all the commandments get broken, and that we have all these laws of men that allow us to break God's commandments, is because people want to be happy. And what's more important is what they think makes them happy than God's law. And like I said, then people recreate God in their own image. Mm-hmm. And they create a God in their mind that the supreme object of that God is to make them happy. And that God understands why they can't keep His commandments, because then they would be unhappy. You know anybody like that, Tom?
Well, let me just make a confession. I've grown up in a generation that is taught and believes and practices that God's law is dead, just like you alluded to earlier. And though I knew God's law, I didn't really comprehend to a large degree how I had violated that law. But we're steeped in this idea that God's law was for the Jews, or that the cross replaced the law. And I've since come to the stark realization that that God's law has the same purpose. It serves the exact same purpose today that it did the day it was given.
That's right.
And that is to let us know what sin is, to indicate to us that we are lost and undone and in violation of God's law, and we need a Savior, a Redeemer, a new spirit within us. And those who teach that God's law is dead are teaching that we're not sinners anymore. For how could one know one is a sinner without the law?
That's true.
And if the law is dead, then there is no sin, because sin is the violation of the law. So saith God in the Scripture. Now, if the law is dead, then there is no sin. And if there's no sin, there's no need for a Savior. When they destroy the law, they destroy grace. And that's the stark realization that has recently come to my mind in the last 10 years of my life, that we've done horror to the truth by teaching, and I use the word we again. I'm sure that upsets you, but as a nation, we have cast aside God's law and buried it just as deeply as we can. And that excuses us now to come up with this imaginary thing that grace is all there is now. Well, why do we need grace if there's no law? Why do we need grace if there's no violation of any law? It defies common sense. It defies the Scripture. And what is really stark about all this is that the Bible is an endless narrative of time after time after time of God's people doing this very thing. Dismissing His law. Right. And making their own law and fashioning God after their own concept. Making God an image. Making God a minister of unrighteousness. And when I say these things, I almost get the impression that it flies right over the head of people because they're so blinded with this doctrine that God's law is dead. And it's the most exasperating subject that I ever broach, either here on Inquisition Update or on amateur radio or in personal one-on-one discussions with people. And immediately, I am immediately dismissed. If I have a crowd of people listening to me, I am immediately dismissed, and that crowd is dispersed if just one person mouths the words, God's law is dead, you're Judaizing.
Right.
Then everybody is dismissed, everybody leaves, and I'm labeled a Judaizer.
Well, they've all been programmed, Tom. And I was programmed and you were programmed with the same program that we're to reject God's law. And there's a good reason for that. You know, why would the world want us to reject God's law? So they can control us with their law.
Right.
Now, you get these Judaizers, or these people who call us Judaizers. And, then the question is, are you lawless? I mean, there are many ways to come back at them and to put them in their place. And I've done it many times. Are you lawless? Or is it all right for me to sleep with your wife?
Yeah.
Which law do you... Because they always... Right. If you start getting into the details of the law, well, they start admitting that, I don't want... adultery's wrong. Or theft is wrong. It's a pick and choose kind of thing.
Well, that's not... Yeah, exactly right. But that's not the reception I get when When they tell me that God's law is dead, I say, all right, then you set me up with your wife tonight. Well, you're just being absurd now, they say.
Just being absurd?
You're just being absurd now.
Well, ask them to show you the verse,
Yeah, I'll tell you what's absurd. What's absurd is a mere sinful fallen man going through God's list of laws and crossing out whichever ones he doesn't like.
That's what it boils down to, Tom.
That's what it amounts to, and they're just refashioning the lawgiver. under an image that is more suitable and more liking to him. It's idolatry. That's what it is. It's idolatry. It's worshiping a figment of a man's own fallen imagination. And it's the most exasperating subject that I ever talk about, because what I say seems to make so much sense to me, and yet so few comprehend it.
And that's the reason is, Tom, that people don't want to keep God's law. They love their license. They love licentiousness. The laws of man, which they don't mind the millions of laws of man, because they can continue to commit adultery. They can continue in their sin because the laws of man gives them license to continue in their sin. It's like the homosexuals. The Bible does not give them license to marry. The Bible gives us license to marry. We don't need a license from the state, and that's one of the banes of Christianity. They are accepted a license to do what God said they could do. They already have a license. The Bible gives us license to do everything that is not against His law, Tom.
Yeah.
For us to turn to the state for the benefit of a license for something that God said we could do, that's almost an abomination itself. It's like saying God's license isn't good enough. But God won't give homosexuals a license to marry. They read His Word, and there's no license there to do it. So they have to turn to their God for license. And that's what licentiousness is. It's when man licenses people to do that which is unlawful according to God's law. And people love
wait, Nicholas, say that again. I've heard that before, that the word licentiousness, as it's used in the Bible, applies to licenses as we know it.
Well, yeah, it's license. It's like I said, the homosexuals, the Bible does not give them license to marry, so they turn to their God, the state, for a license to marry. That's called licentiousness.
Okay, that's news to me.
Licentiousness is you have a license to steal if you're in the Congress, or if you get laws passed through the legislature. You have a license to kill your child before it's born from the state, because it's idolatry. It's worshiping another god, turning to another god, to the laws of another god, to do that which is unlawful according to the law of God. That's what licentiousness is.
Yeah. Well, I guess I never investigated the true meaning of the word licentiousness. I always equated it to mean lawlessness, but I guess that's what it is.
Well, it is lawless. I mean, you have a license to break God's law. That's what a license is.
I just never connected it with license.
Now, if you go get your Black's Law Dictionary out, and you look up license, it'll say permission from competent authority to do that which would be otherwise unlawful.
Yeah.
That's what it says in the Law Dictionary, or something close to that. That's called licentiousness.
I hope you don't ask me to give you a list of all my licenses, because I've got too long a list.
Well, now getting back to, the situation and all the things that we voluntarily signed up for that we thought we had to sign up for. Mm-hmm. Because any time that you sign a document, you're volunteering, Tom. You're making a choice to enter into an agreement. And when you signed up for a Social Security number, you were signing up for benefits. One of the benefits was their employment service or employee services. Another benefit is that they would take care of you. You basically said, will you be my daddy? That's what you said. And will you manage my financial affairs, because I'm incompetent to manage them myself, or I just don't want to bother. So they take your employment and they take charge of your money, and you have to report on a 1040 Inquisition form to your master every year. That's what you signed up for when you signed up with the Social Security Administration. Because what you said was, I want the benefit of someone taking care of me if I get hurt or if I get old and I can't work anymore. And now when you really think it through, you think of the responsibility that you're giving to someone else and all that you have to give them to fulfill that responsibility. And then you begin to understand what you entered into when you signed up for Social Security benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Until you comprehend that, most people don't even begin to understand or even want to understand what they signed up for. But you declared yourself incompetent. You said, I need someone to manage my financial affairs all of my life, because if left to myself, I will not manage my affairs in such a way that I will be able to take care of myself if I can no longer work.
Mm-hmm.
That's your declaration, in other words. But if you think it through, that's exactly what you're doing when you sign that form for benefits.
Well, I'm deeply convicted that I've offended the Lord and violated His law now, for more fully understanding what the Social Security card is. And I want to unvolunteer.
Well, then basically the best way to unvolunteer is to just stop using it and sever everything that is connected to it. Now, Paul said something, and I'm going to paraphrase it. He said he was talking about slaves, people in a slave-servant relationship, whether they entered into it voluntarily or not, because in the day that Paul was living, you could become a bondservant. Say you got into debt, and to pay your debts, you signed yourself up for 6 years, because the limit was 6 years according to God's law. You could serve 6 years, but after that they had to let you go. So there was a limit to slavery or being a bondservant. But people would sign their life away, so they had to serve their master.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul said, well, servants or slaves, serve your masters as unto the Lord. And we discussed that a little bit about how even Daniel and his fellows there in Babylon, they served their masters as unto the Lord until their master asked them to break God's law. And that's where they drew the line, because God's law was higher than their master's law. And we can apply that, to our lives today. To your boss is a master-servant relationship. If you have a job, if you've signed up for benefits such as Social Security, you've made them your master. So if you stop volunteering, Tom, well, they're going to come after you. And they're going to send you a letter. Say you don't fill out your 1040 Inquisition form 1 year. Okay? So you've been filling it out for 10 years, and now suddenly you don't fill it in. Well, they're going to send you a letter of inquiry. Golly, we missed your form this year.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be a multiple choice questionnaire that they're going to send you as to why you did not fill out and send in a form this year. And,
mm-hmm.
I remember getting one so many years ago after a number of years of filling out the Inquisition form. And I checked the box that said I did not have any income last year, and I don't expect to have any income next year or this year. And I sent that back to them, and I've never heard from them since. And since then, I've moved several times, and I've never owned any property since then, and things like that. I've severed all those relationships over years, Tom. The thing about if you're going to write that in your form, check the box saying it didn't have any income, but yet they have W-4s and 1099s on you showing that you did have income, well, they're going to come after you. And if you own any property, they're going to end up taking it by putting a lien against your name and recording it at the recorder's office wherever you have property recorded in your name. So you have to be prepared for all of that when you sever yourself from the system. The first thing to do is get rid of everything that you have, to sell it all. And, perhaps give it to someone else or put it in a trust where you can enjoy the benefit of it. Things like that. You have to just use whatever devices that you can in their system, in their recording devices, in their legal system to move everything out of your name or give it away or sell it or whatever you have to do to get rid of it, or be prepared to lose it. Like if you own a house in your name and it's worth $125,000 and you owe $120,000 against it to a mortgage company, well, you really got nothing to worry about. They're not going to take your house because you don't really own it. The bank does.
Mm-hmm.
So, because when they come after you, they're interested in one thing, money. And it's going to cost them money to get the money. So if your asset's not worth anything to them, they're not going to come after you for it. But they will try to intimidate you in other ways. So it's always best to move out of the servitude relationship using the devices and their laws that you can use, and also to physically move so that, I mean, if the opportunity arises, I realize some people think, well, golly, I can't move. I can't physically move just to sever my relationship with, the beast system or to get out of that.
Mm-hmm.
I have moved several times, and never putting in a forwarding address with the post office, making sure that only the people that I wanted to follow me could follow me.
Yeah.
So we have to, like Yeshua, like Jesus said, be wise as serpents. We have to think these things through. If we don't want the beast hounding us, because the beast will hound you for the rest of your life if you allow it. If you don't drop all the things that are associated with the number, like the driver's license or anything else you had to give the number to obtain, see, because these are all privileges, and these are privileges now, like I said, 10 or 15 years ago, I could get a driver's license in California without giving them a number.
Mm-hmm.
And, I remember when I was a teenager, I went to driver's education. And I learned one thing, Tom, I do remember they taught me. Driving is a privilege.
Well, we all know that they can take away that privilege at will, and that makes it a privilege, doesn't it?
Most people don't understand what the term privilege means at law. And when you're signing a document, and when they tell you driving is a privilege isn't the normal meaning that you think it is in everyday language that people use out there. It's a privilege to be on your program today, Tom.
Well, thank you.
But it is, and legally it's a privilege too. No, privilege is a legal term, and the root words of privilege are two words. Do you know what they are?
No.
Well, if you go into the Latin, there's two root words, and one is privilege, and the other one is law. Or, the one is private and the other one is law. So anytime you hear the word privilege or privilege, it means private law.
Interesting.
Now, when we apply that and try to understand when we're speaking at law about privileges, it changes everything, Tom. And perhaps we'll talk a little bit more about privilege when we get back from the break. I'll let you.
Yes, you're listening to Inquisition Update, and we'll continue with our guest, Nicholas Arthur, right after these messages.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on Internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the Internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
Welcome back, and now we'll continue with our discussion from Nicholas. Brother Nicholas, I don't suppose I have to describe to you the quandary that I'm left with, recognizing that the Social Security number is really my bondage number to an ungodly beast system that has me enslaved. I can't get a driver's license without that number. I can't get a bank account without that number. I can't hold a job without that number. I can't pay taxes without that number. I can't get licenses, my professional licensure.
Well, Tom,
it looks to me like, without a Social Security number, the best I can hope for the rest of my life is a nice, warm cardboard box under a bridge somewhere.
Well, to live without the number requires one thing, and a lot of it, Tom, and that is faith. You'll have to live by faith. And the fact is that it can be done. I've gone through years practically broke and without a job, without any prospects or any of those things, because I decided to put off the number. And all of those things are good for the soul. But the fact is that you learn, and the way you learn is by doing. When we talked, when we left the last segment, we were talking about privilege, privilegie, meaning private law is what the term means. And as I discussed earlier with you, that any time you have to sign a document, you're entering into private law, and private law for free men is voluntary. It's all voluntary. Now the problem is that when so many people volunteer, when a majority of the people have volunteered into the private law system, well, then they get mad at other people who do not. And
right.
that because then they have their policy enforcers out there to enforce the policy on all those who've entered into private law, and then they want to enforce it on those who haven't signed up for the privileges of whatever privileges that people have voluntarily signed up for. So it becomes a quandary. But you have to, it really requires faith, to go out there and travel on the highways and the byways without a driver's license, without signing up for the privilege, because you know that if one of the policy enforcers out there stops you, that you're going to have a problem, right? Because the first thing he's going to ask you is for your proof of insurance or your driver's license and registration or whatever. Now, 15 years ago,
he's going to want to know why there's no tags on the back of my vehicle.
Well, that's true, and he may stop you just because there are no tags on your vehicle.
Yeah.
I got a friend that has a program on one of the networks. His name is Alfred A. Dask. I don't know if you've ever listened to him.
No.
But he speaks about legal issues and dealing with the system, and he says he's a man of strong faith. But anyway, he talks about notice. When the policeman pulls you over, he pulls you over because you've given him notice. One, you're going too fast. You've given him notice that you're breaking his policy. You've given him a reason to pull you over. One of your taillights is out. You've given him notice that you're not keeping up the state vehicle very well, and he needs to look into it because, after all, he is the policy enforcer. So you have to look at the notices that you're giving them. And I've learned this for years of traveling. And you notice I don't say driving, because I've learned something about driving too. In law, driving is a profession, and I've never been a driver in my life.
Okay.
And see, if they do drag me in for driving without a license, well, that's an accusation, and I would have to proclaim that I am not driving and that I've never been a driver in my life. I've been a lot of things, but I've never been a driver. And if you're a driver, well, that's like the cab driver or the truck driver, someone carrying passengers or cargo for hire, and I've never been that. I'm a traveler, and I don't drive the automobile. I steer it.
Yeah.
And if I want to go faster, I depress the gas pedal. And if I want to stop, then I push on the brake pedal. See, I know how to control my automobile. An automobile. Yeah.
So the law that governs the land uses terms that have definitions that are quite different than the definitions that we.
Well, that's why they call it code, Tom. You understand? Well, no, seriously, that's why it's code. Because it's not for you to understand. It's for you to be confused. When they bring the code and use it against you, you have to be able to decode it. See, because I know I'm not a driver, but every day out there in the language, they polluted the language so well that people don't understand what they're saying. They don't understand what a driver is or is a vehicle. First Amendment radio is a vehicle. And if you're operating is another term. Or if you're driving a vehicle on the public highways, well, then you're in commerce. But see, if I'm traveling in my automobile on the public ways, then I'm not in commerce. Because an automobile, well, auto is autonomous, mobile is mobility. It's my device for autonomous mobility, and I'm using it to travel. I have every right to do that without entering into privilege, without signing a document.
I'm sure the highway patrolman, as he has you stop, would be amused beyond measure.
Well, some of them know, Tom.
Some of them know. Huh?
Some of them have been educated, Tom.
Interesting.
Because if you don't have a driver's license, they can't give you a ticket. Because who are they going to give the ticket to?
And to confuse the issue, they offer a commercial driver's license as well.
Well, there's a passenger driver's license.
Mm-hmm.
See, because you're carrying passengers for hire.
Mm-hmm.
And you're using a state automobile because when you get your automobile, you sign it over to the state. You give them the title, and they give you a certificate. There's been a lot of research into this area, Anyway, I really don't want...
Where do I go to get this research? Because it looks to me like if I'm serious, then I'm going to have to know their terms and definition and be able to use their law against them.
Let's see. I'll send you some links. But you can look it up. Right to Travel, do that. Do a Google search on Right to Travel.
Okay.
You'll find a overwhelming amount of documentation on the right to travel. But see, that's just one thing. So when I travel out on the road, I recognize the fact that there are notices all over the place. So I want to give the police or the policy enforcers notice that they're accustomed to seeing they'll leave me alone.
Mm-hmm.
That's the notice I want to give them. Leave me alone. Don't bother me. I belong here. So you have to realize, because I don't have a license plate of my vehicle, but what I have is I have a dealer's placard in place of a license plate. And the dealer's placard is from the lot where I bought the automobile. Now you buy an automobile in California from a dealer, and if it doesn't have a plate, they'll put a dealer's placard on it, and then they'll tape a little DMV form to the windshield on the passenger side in the front. Mm-hmm. So if you look at my vehicle, it's going to have a dealer placard, and taped to the right-hand side front of the windshield, there's my travel document is taped there. It's folded up and taped to the windshield on the inside. So what I'm giving him notice of is that I belong there, that everything looks normal. My vehicle is clean. It looks like it could have just drove off the lot. It has the dealer placard on it. It has my travel paper. Now, if he stops me, he's going to realize that's not the DMV form, even though it's folded and taped there like it is. But I don't exceed the speed limit. I bring my automobile up to the speed limit or maybe 1 or 2 miles per hour faster, and I set the cruise control there. So I don't have to worry about accidentally going over the speed limit. And I try to obey all their suggested posted signs.
Yeah.
Because they're looking for people to write tickets. And they're looking for people that are speeding or people that don't look like they belong there. So you have to watch the notices that you're giving the police when you're out there traveling around.
So let me ask you a question. What about insurance? What about automobile insurance? How do you get automobile insurance without a license?
That's all privilege.
What about health care insurance?
Well, I follow God's law. I eat the way I should. And I add a lot of common sense. I supplement. The best health insurance is to live by God's law.
Yeah.
Besides, if we go back to my son, if unbelievers entice thee, consent thou not. If they say, come with us, cast in thy lot with us, let us all have one purse, I'm not supposed to do that. It includes insurance. That includes health insurance. Most people get in trouble with their health because they're disobedient to God's law. Now, you could have an accident. You could be poisoned. But I'd say most of the time, 95% of the time, maybe even 98% of the time, is people get in trouble because of their appetite and their disobedience to God's law, because they don't practice self-control. They eat what tastes good, or they allow the advertisers out there to sell them foods that God did not create. And, that's something we should take some time perhaps to talk about in another segment about what the New Testament says about food and how we should eat, what the New Testament says about the dietary laws. Because just like God's law was nailed to the cross, the preachers and the pastors and the teachers of the corporate church have totally perverted the New Testament and teaching on the dietary law. Now, that was only for the Jews. Yes, God just did not want them, Hebrew children, to enjoy bacon frying in the pan, Tom.
Right.
He just did not want them to have that enjoyment. That's why he told them not to eat pork and other unclean meats. I mean, why should I be deprived of shellfish, shrimp and those other things? Because they taste so good. But God's law said don't eat those things. And if you look at what he said don't eat, well, it's scavenger meats, carnivores. And I believe that he told them not to eat those things for their own health. Because, he's the creator, and he knows what the proper fuel is for this biological mechanism that he gave us to live in for the time that we're on this planet. So we should listen to the manufacturer's recommendations. I mean, you don't buy an automobile and say, well, golly, I'm going to try a different fuel today. I know they say don't put only unleaded gasoline in the gas tank, but let's try a little sugar water. I mean, it sure gives me energy. No, we follow the manufacturer's suggestions for recommendations for what kind of fuel we put in our automobile. Well, shouldn't we take more care for our own body? So there's health insurance. His health insurance plan, I like it the best.
Yeah.
Insurance for, I pray and I praise when I'm traveling about on the road. I have my praise music up full blast, and, I'm traveling around in that automobile, and we're all singing praise. And we're praising God, and I'm praying too. And I pray especially when I see police. And I see a lot of them because they're out there all over the place. And I pay attention. I know what they're doing. And when I know how to act. Invisible, Tom.
And 99% of the Christian world would say you are living in disobedience and rebellion, wouldn't they?
Yeah. But you know what? You know what's easier, Tom? It would be easier to capitulate. It would be easier to buy insurance and get a driver's license. I'm not doing all these things because it's easy, Tom. It's scary. Living by faith is scary. But Jesus said, fear not them that kill the body. And that means I'm not supposed to fear to obey God. I am not supposed to fear a policeman who might stop me on the side of the road and steal my automobile. And of course, I'm gonna act in such a way that he's not gonna tase me. I'm not gonna raise my hand. I'm gonna comply with him. I'm gonna let him steal my automobile if that's what he wants to do. It's happened to me in the past. It may happen again in the future. Mm-hmm. But I travel under the shadow of the wings of the Almighty. That's how I travel, Tom. And that means that I have to live by faith. And I'll tell you what, if I was out here living in sin, womanizing, breaking God's law, I would be afraid to travel by faith. Because I would be afraid that he would not protect me if I wasn't being obedient to him. So this living by faith, living the way I'm living without all the privileges of the beast system, Tom, means that I have to, I would be afraid to live disobedient to my Creator. Because I would be afraid to lose his protection. Because I know he's protecting me.
That's living by faith, isn't it? We can't even conceive of it in this society.
The just shall walk by faith. And living by faith is not an easy thing. It's easy to take all the privileges of man and sign up for all the privileges and then say I'm living by faith. But it's another thing to walk away from all of the privileges of man and then actually live by faith. The early Christians did it. They would not throw a pinch of incense into the altar to say Caesar is Lord. And here we do more, and I'm using we the way you do. The people of this country and so-called corporate Christians, they throw the pinch in all day long.
Yeah.
They capitulate to Caesar all day long. They call him Lord. And they sign up for privileges. See, the only reason it's privileges here, Tom, is because this is supposed to be the land of the free. We have the articles to the Constitution that are supposed to allow us to live by faith the way I'm living. And I will use those articles, and that's why I have them written into my document. And you notice I call it their law. I'm holding them to it. My law is God's law.
Yeah.
Their law says they have to protect my right to live by God's law. And I will use that as long as I can.
Mm-hmm. I'll bet they hate dealing with you.
Well, and that's another thing, is especially when times are tough like this. They may look at, selling my vehicle, but I think it's going to cost them a lot more money to deal with me. They're looking for the easy kill. The guy that's going 20 miles over the speed limit so they can write him a $250 ticket.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're looking for. They're trying to meet their quota every day, and that's why I just try to blend in. And all the notices on my automobile, everything that my automobile, and I'm telling them I have my lap belt on. If they happen to spy in, I'm not talking on a cell phone, which is against their rules. I have a shoulder strap over my shoulder because to be without it would be giving them notice that they should stop me.
Yeah.
So you have to look at the notices that you're giving them if you're going to live by faith. It's very important. I'm probably one of the safest travelers out there on the road.
Yeah.
Because I don't have insurance to back me up. I can't be careless, Tom.
Right.
I haven't cast in my lot and I don't have one purse with them to take care of my problem if I get careless and I cause an accident.
This whole insurance racket has, if you think about it, has helped to destroy our value for life and property, hasn't it?
Well, not only that, it's driven up the price of everything that is insured. Health insurance. I mean, used to be your doctor would come to your house for a dozen eggs.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But now you got to go to your doctor and sit there for an hour.
Yeah.
And then he's going to charge you way, way more money than anybody ought to be making. And the same thing with the automobile insurance. I think someone did a study, and they figured it was either 8 to 12% of the premiums that people are paying for automobile insurance actually go to the administration and to pay the claims for the automobile insurance industry. The other 88 to 92% is pure profit. What are you paying for? And how did those laws get passed? Because someone greased a lot of palms in Congress or in the legislatures of the states. And they said, well, we want everyone who signs up for the privilege of driving is now required to have insurance. And say, I can't buy insurance if I want to, Tom, because you have to have a driver's license to buy insurance. But in order to get a driver's license now, you have to produce a Social Security card. And what they're doing is they're tying everything together. And we can see how this system will all be tied together eventually until that time comes where they're going to kill people who won't partake.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything is going to be tied to it. It's going to be difficult, but it won't be impossible. One, if you're in it, well, you can overcome it. As you brought out that scripture that says that talks about overcoming the mark of the beast.
Yeah.
So we need to overcome it. We need to get the victory over it. I guess that's what it says.
Right.
Who got the victory over the mark. Well, I'm getting the victory over the mark. And I believe that God is calling a lot of people. I mean, I've seen some amens in here in the chat room. And I notice more and more sites and people every day talk about getting out of the SS system.
Yeah.
And the privilege and traveling by right, the right to travel. You just put that in your Google engine, right to travel, and you'll get an education in American law and the right to travel.
Well, this is a whole new subject for me, and I have to admit and confess to my listeners and to you and everyone else that my eyes are glassed over. I mean, I'm just beginning to comprehend just how corrupt, and I'm using the word again, we, in our society, just how corrupt we are, and we call ourselves a Christian nation. And it doesn't seem to be any end of it. The more I learn, the more depressed I get. I hope I didn't depress my listeners. None of this is supposed to be depressing. Obeying the Lord should be our delight. And I need to change my attitude. And I see we've come to the end of the program. Stay tuned later for, right after the news, Nicholas Arthur's Cross the Border. We'll see you tomorrow on Inquisition Update on LibertyRadioLive.com.
Bye, everybody.
Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn, the Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.